it, Count Corlett. Taoiseach, yesterday's budget, Taoiseach, was a deep disappointment. It was a deep disappointment. There's real anger out there, Taoiseach. You made choices in this budget that are impacting really adversely on so many people. As my colleague Deputy Jed Nash has said, in what was, I think, the line of the day yesterday, this was a budget that is giving handouts to burger barons and to big builders, but broken promises for everyone else. And people see that, and this is raw. Students facing a €500 fee increase, parents seeing no reduction in childcare costs when they can get a childcare place, families struggling with the cost of living crisis, and people unable to find a home of their own. And of course, nothing for disabled people or for carers. Taoiseach, this was derisory for those. Here in Ireland, employment rates for people with disabilities are 20% lower than the European average. 1 in 5 people unable to work due to disability live in consistent poverty. Our social protection system has to intervene, and there was great hope of significant intervention in this budget. Taoiseach, supports like the Disability Allowance and Disability Support Grant are essentials, covering costs in heating, in food, in medication and rent, funding day-to-day expenses of disabled people and of carers in an inaccessible society. But the removal of one-off support payments in your budget is expected to cost disabled people, Taoiseach, €1,400 a year. That's not loose change, it's money that keeps the lights on. By contrast, Labour in government would introduce a cost of disability payment, starting at €25 per week, to help meaningfully offset the cost of disability. Our Labour alternative budget, published last week, proposed a 50% increase in housing adaptation grant funding to ease the burden of making a home accessible. Taoiseach, your budget could have taken steps like these to provide transformations in the lives of disabled people, but you left them out. You failed to introduce a cost of disability payment. You ended one-off payments and you introduced nothing new. Now, in respect of carers, we do welcome the increase in the carers allowance disregard. Indeed, that's something that we, and in particular my colleague Deputy Mark Wall, had been campaigning on for years. But what's missing is progress on abolishing the mean-spirited means test. It's a broken promise, because where's the pathway to abolition that was committed to in your programme for government less than a year ago? A €10 rise in core payments is derisory, Taoiseach. It amounts to an hourly increase of less than 6 cents for someone providing 24-hour care, and yet more than 2/3 of caring families struggling to cover the cost of food and energy in a cost of living crisis. So, Taoiseach, you failed disabled people and carers in this budget, and that's really evident. And it's a very significant broken promise in a litany of broken promises in a budget that is a do-nothing budget for far too many.
Thank you. Taoiseach.
I have to disagree, Deputy, because in terms of the commitments we made in the election, we're following through on them very clearly in this budget. And you avoided the whole area of child poverty, which we should welcome, the move. We have to do more. But there's very £300 million package alone for the lowest income. And look at the objective assessment. And as a Labour Party, you should acknowledge it, that the 2 lowest income deciles will benefit the most from this budget. And that's the reality. In terms of disability, there are significant increases in a range of payments, particularly disability pension, but also in terms of the domiciliary care allowance, which is going up a further €20 on top of last year's increase. And that's right and proper. And there is work underway in respect of the cost of disability. But we have made there's a huge increase in the disability budget this year. I think it's in the order of 20% increase in disability budget in terms of the services for people with disabilities. And that's right and proper. And we're going to continue to prioritise disability and child poverty, but also in terms of infrastructure. Like, you look at the education investment in terms of more schools, that affects workers. They want their children to have access to education services. The capitation grants are gone up by record levels. I think Minister McEntee secured €50 in terms of the primary and €20 in post-primary. They're very, very significant on top of the increases we've had in previous years. And that's all recognising the impact of the cost of living on schools and services. We have a rising population and we have an infrastructure deficit. And the workers of this country need their jobs protected, and we need to be creating new types of jobs for the future. And that is going to happen because of the investment we've committed to, which is more long-term. We're doing it in building the roads, the hospitals, the schools, and in terms of investment in research and development. We did a lot in the late 1990s, early 2000s in research, which laid the foundations for jobs that we have today, high quality, high value jobs, both in foreign direct investment and in terms of the domestic economy. The measures in the budget on the taxation side for R&D, and in terms of what Minister Lawless has in his budget, which is, and the NDP, which is very much enhanced, will make a significant step change in terms of research in this country. And that guarantees jobs in the future. It doesn't guarantee votes in the short term, by the way, but it's the right thing to do for the country. The right thing to do. And I'm trying to move away from short-termism. And in this first budget, we want to lay foundations that will sustain the economy. No, I said during the election, Deputy Murphy, that I wanted to maintain the enterprise economic model that we have, which you resolutely opposed.
Thank you, Taoiseach.
And that was a big choice in the election.
Time is up.
And people voted accordingly in terms of that fundamental principle.
Deputy Bacik.
Well, Taoiseach, certainly in last year's budget there was a very different approach taken, a giveaway budget to buy people's votes. This year you've made very different choices. And let's be clear about those choices. You referenced child poverty, and we in Labour put forward last week a children's budget, a costed set of proposals that would have made meaningful steps to tackling the scourge of child poverty and child homelessness. In your budget speeches yesterday, your minister's speeches, no reference to homelessness, no reference to the shocking figure of 5,000 children in homelessness, no reference to the proposal to introduce a second tier of child benefit, a really meaningful way in which we could have tackled child poverty. As Deputy Marie Sherlock has said, this could have been the game changer for children and child poverty. Instead, you've chosen to give over €600 million in a giveaway, a whopper of a giveaway, for big fast food chains, for big business in the hospitality sector. That's a choice you made. We in Labour, uniquely in our manifesto last year, did not make that choice. We stood against that sort of crazy VAT cut, and we did not stand for narrowing the tax base. We stand for decent public services, tackling child poverty and homelessness.
That's why we've invested in public services. This is a 9.4 billion budget. A lot of economists are saying it's too high, that we shouldn't be expending as much as we're spending. So a lot of economists are saying to us, no, we disagree. We think that the expenditure increase is in line with the basic premise of an expenditure rule, that this represents real growth of the economy and change in price levels. So that's the government's position. But it is very substantial investment in public services. And on the second tier, some of the models for second tier would result in thousands of children losing out. So what we've opted to do in a more straightforward way is to substantially and unprecedentedly, in terms of the scale of increases, which Minister Cleary put forward, was to increase the child support payment. And it is quite substantial. And we'll grow that, and de facto you essentially have, in time, a second tier. I think that's the most straightforward and simple way to do it, and it will be very impactful. And then in terms of education and health services and disability services, there are substantial increases.
Thank you.
Way above the rate of inflation for services.
Thank you. Deputy Holly Kearns.